Let's jump into a holiday essential, the perfect sugar cookie dough. This recipe is my secret to buttery, perfectly shaped cookies that are a dream to decorate. Ever wonder how to get cookies that hold their shape beautifully with that soft, melt-in-your-mouth texture? This dough has the magic. I'm making a double batch today for all my holiday gifting, but note that the ingredient amounts in the recipe notes are for a single batch, so you can adjust as needed. These cookies are perfect for every holiday, from Valentine's Day hearts to Christmas stars and even birthday celebrations. Whatever shape you choose, this dough brings a classic touch and makes every cookie special. Let's get started and see how it's done. I am Arina, and on this channel, I'm excited to share my favorite recipes and tips to make sure they look just as amazing as they taste. No pressure, right? All from my kitchen to yours. You'll find links to all the tools I use, and a few I probably can't live without, down in the description. Let's dive in and get started. To keep things smooth and stress-free, I always start by measuring everything out. Sifting the flour is optional. It can help make the dough a little lighter and avoid lumps. But personally, I usually skip this step, and it still turns out great. In a large mixing bowl, add 2.5 cups of flour. No need to pack it down, just a nice level scoop. Next, add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. This little addition balances out the sweetness in the dough and brings out the buttery flavor. Give everything a quick whisk until it's fully combined and set the bowl aside for later. Taking a few seconds to mix thoroughly now will make sure the dough is perfectly smooth when it all comes together. I like to use a whisk here because it evenly distributes the salt through the flour. But if you're in a pinch, a fork will do the job too. And a little tip from me, once everything is combined, give the bowl a light tap on the counter to settle any loose flour. It keeps things tidy and makes it easier to work with when we add the wet ingredients later. With our dry ingredients prepped and set aside, we're all set for the next step. Next, in a medium bowl, I crack 1 egg. I always use large eggs for this recipe because it adds just the right amount of richness and helps bind the dough perfectly. Then, I add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. For me, vanilla is absolutely essential. It brings that cozy, classic flavor that makes these cookies so irresistible and instantly comforting. The aroma alone just sets the tone for a good baking day. I give it a good whisk until the egg and vanilla are fully blended and smooth. I like to make sure there are no streaks of egg white left, so the vanilla is perfectly mixed in. This step only takes a few seconds, but makes a big difference in how evenly the flavor spreads through the dough. Once everything looks smooth and glossy, I set this bowl aside for now, knowing it's all ready to bring our sugar cookies to life. I hope you're having as much fun making these classic sugar cookies as I am. If you're enjoying this recipe, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss out on more holiday baking ideas. Have you tried making sugar cookies before? How did they turn out? Any favorite decorating tips or tricks? I'd love to hear your ideas in the comments. Thanks for spending time with me in the kitchen. Let's dive back in and get these cookies ready to bake. Now, we're moving on to the heart of the dough, the butter and sugar. In my KitchenAid mixer, I add 1 cup of softened, unsalted butter. I always make sure the butter is at room temperature because it blends so much better and creates that light, airy texture we want in our cookies. I'm using a 7-quart KitchenAid mixer here, which is a lifesaver for double batches of thick cookie dough like this one. The larger bowl and stronger motor make it much easier to handle the weight of a thicker dough without putting too much strain on the mixer. If you're using a mixer with a tilt head design, I'd recommend sticking to a single batch at a time, as those mixers are best suited for smaller, lighter mixes. This way, you won't risk overloading or overheating the mixer. Finally, I add 2/3 of a cup of sugar. This gives the cookies their perfect sweetness without being overwhelming. I've found that this balance keeps them just right for decorating. They're sweet enough to enjoy on their own, but also pair wonderfully with icing. The sugar and butter together give us that classic melt-in-your-mouth texture. So it's worth taking the time to get this part just right. Using the paddle attachment, I start on low speed. Trust me, this prevents a butter explosion all over the kitchen. Once the butter and sugar are mixing smoothly, I slowly increase to medium, letting the mixer do its thing for about 2 to 3 minutes. I wait until the mixture is light and fluffy. This step really brings out that rich buttery flavor we want in these cookies. It's like setting the foundation for that perfect melt-in-your-mouth texture. Once everything's looking nice and fluffy, I give the bowl a quick scrape with my silicone spatula to make sure nothing's hanging out on the sides. This way, all the butter and sugar are fully combined and we're ready for the next step. This dough is hands down the best for cutout cookies. It holds its shape perfectly, which means you can create all sorts of fun, personalized shapes for any occasion, even for those oops moments. I've even used these cookies to say sorry when words alone just didn't seem like enough. Once, my daughter and I made sorry cookies together after a little mishap. Kids make mistakes, and I see moments like this as a chance to teach her how to make things right and learn from it. So we rolled up our sleeves, cut out the cookies, and she carefully wrote "sorry" on each one, as if she was writing a heartfelt, edible note. The result was so sweet and sincere, it was impossible not to forgive her and enjoy a delicious cookie or two. There's just something about a homemade sorry that melts the heart, especially when it's as delicious as these cookies. If you'd like to see how we made our sorry cookies and turned a little mistake into a loving lesson, I have a video that walks you through the whole process. Check it out if you're looking for a little inspiration to turn baking into a sweet way to say, I'm sorry, and a reminder that every mistake can be a chance to learn, grow, and share a treat. Now it's time to add the egg and vanilla mixture. I pour it in slowly while mixing on medium speed until everything's fully incorporated. This step only takes a minute, but it's so important for that smooth, even texture in the dough. You'll start to notice the dough transforming. It's thickening up nicely, and the smell of vanilla starts filling the kitchen. For me, this is one of those moments that brings on all the cozy holiday vibes. The vanilla adds that warm, classic scent that makes everything feel just a little more festive. And here's a tip. If you're like me and can't resist the smell of vanilla, make sure to take a little pause to enjoy it. This is where I know the cookies are going to taste as good as they smell. I keep mixing until There are no streaks of egg or vanilla left in the bowl, just a smooth, even dough that's fully ready for the dry ingredients. It's a small step, but it makes a big difference in how nicely the cookies bake up later. And there's something so satisfying about watching it all come together perfectly. Now, it's time to bring in the dry ingredients. I add them gradually, about a third at a time, keeping the mixer on low speed. Trust me, you don't want to skip this part. With a double batch, this dough is thick, and starting slow helps avoid a flour storm all over the kitchen. Learned that one the hard way. After each addition, I let the mixer work just until the dry ingredients are incorporated. Then I add the next part. I keep it on the absolute lowest setting to give my mixer a break and let the dough blend nice and slowly. At this stage, it's a bit like patiently waiting for everything to come together without stressing the poor mixer out. I've learned that rushing thick dough like this can be hard on the machine. So low and slow is my rule here. Once all the dry ingredients are added, the dough should be smooth, thick, and holding together beautifully without being sticky. If you're ever unsure, give it a little poke. It should be firm enough to hold its shape, but not so sticky that it clings to your finger. Taking it slow pays off, and by now, we've got a perfect dough ready to roll. Once the dough is fully mixed and looking beautifully smooth, it's time to remove the bowl from the mixer. Carefully lift the bowl off the stand and get ready to tackle the paddle attachment. With a thick dough like this, it loves to cling on for dear life. I grab my silicone spatula to help out, working it around the paddle to free any bits of dough still stuck on. A little twist here, a scoop there, and I managed to get every last bit without too much fuss. The flexible spatula makes it easy to scrape off the dough without leaving any behind. And soon enough, the paddle is clear and the dough is all set for the next step. Now it's time to divide up our dough. Since we're working with a double batch, I'll end up with 5 portions instead of the usual 2. I scoop each portion out with my trusty silicone spatula, placing it directly onto a piece of food wrap. Here's my little trick. Instead of shaping it right away, I loosely wrap the dough first. This keeps my hands from becoming a sticky mess and saves me from scrubbing dough off my fingers for the next 10 minutes. Once it's loosely wrapped, I press each portion into a nice, flat disc. Why discs, you ask? Well, they're easier to chill and a lot easier to roll out later. Plus, they stack up neatly in the fridge. No balancing acts or dough avalanches here. By the end, I've got 5 perfectly wrapped, stackable dough discs ready for the fridge. I'll let them chill for at least an hour, which firms up the dough and makes it ideal for rolling out without sticking. It's like giving the dough a little time to relax before we put it to work shaping those classic cookie cutouts. Once all the dough discs are neatly wrapped, I place them in the refrigerator to chill for at least an hour. This chilling time is essential. It firms up the dough and makes it so much easier to roll out and cut into those perfect shapes without sticking. If you're planning ahead or not baking right away, you can also freeze these discs for up to 3 months. Here's a tip. Pop the wrapped discs into a gallon-sized freezer bag and label it with a Sharpie, adding the date and sugar cookie dough, so there's no confusion later. When you're ready to bake, simply let the discs thaw overnight in the fridge, and they'll be perfectly chilled and ready to roll, just like freshly made dough. I make classic sugar cookies pretty much for every occasion. They're just so versatile. You can cut them into any shape and decorate them however you like, making them perfect for holidays, birthdays, or those just because moments. One of my favorite traditions is baking them for my daughter's birthday to bring to school. As she's grown, her requests have gone from simple hearts and stars to everything from unicorns and ice skates to pandas, and I'm always up for the challenge. I individually wrap each cookie in self-sealable plastic bags, which keeps them fresh and neatly packed, and saves me from finding crumbs in her backpack for weeks. It's a simple but special treat that always makes everyone smile. And that's it, our classic sugar cookie dough. All ready to roll out and become the heart of your holiday baking. This dough is wonderfully versatile, easy to work with, and holds up beautifully to all those fun cookie cutters, whether you're making stars, hearts, or something completely unique. It bakes up with a soft, buttery texture and just the right amount of sweetness, making it perfect for decorating or enjoying as is. I hope you'll give this recipe a try and maybe even make it part of your own holiday traditions. One tip from me: if you're planning to decorate these cookies with royal icing, I recommend baking the cookies a day ahead and letting them cool completely. This way, they're firm and ready for decorating without any smudges or cracks. Speaking of decorating, in my next video, I'll be showing you exactly how to flood cutout cookies with royal icing. So if you want beautifully decorated cookies, make sure to check that out. Thank you so much for joining me in the kitchen today. If you enjoyed this recipe, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you'll be the first to catch all my holiday baking ideas. I've got plenty more festive treats coming your way, so stay tuned. Happy baking, and I'll see you in the next video. Let's make this holiday season delicious and memorable together.